Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're observing this webinar from. And welcome to this installment of InduSoft Web Studio's webinar series. My name is Bruce Hallenstein. I work on the InduSoft sales team, focusing primarily on North America. And this week, we're glad to have our co-host, Cameron Schley from SLYTRACKR, located in Denver, Colorado. And our topic this week would be the use of InduSoft Web Studio for machine performance monitoring. Before I get going, can I just get a quick audio check from people back in the home office? All right, sounds like everybody can hear me. So as I mentioned, my name is Bruce Hallenstein. What I'd like to do is I'll get started with kind of a brief overview of InduSoft Web Studio for those joining us that may not be current users of the product. I'll also highlight a couple of resources we have on our website that may be of particular interest for users interested in developing applications to better understand and improve machine performance. And then I will turn over the presentation to Cameron Schley from SLYTRACKR. SLYTRACKR has developed a machine performance monitoring product they call SLYTRACKR. He obviously uses InduSoft Web Studio for the graphical presentation element for his customers, machine performance metrics, allowing them to better quantify the machine uptime, availability, and also better understand some of the reasons behind recorded downtime. And then finally, we'll end the webinar with a Q&A session. So if during the course of the presentation you have any questions that arise, either in the product overview or during Cameron's presentation, please enter them into the Q&A dialog. You should see somewhere within the WebEx interface, and we'll be happy to address those at the end of the discussion. Also, before I forget, we do ask that you take the time to complete the survey that's presented to you at the end of the webinar. Just gives us a better understanding of the value that we offer in these weekly or bi-weekly webinars. If you complete the survey, we'll get a T-shirt out to you to the address registered with your attendance. And also, I should add that we will record this webinar and post it on our website archive for later use. So, if you see something and you can't remember what it was a few days down the road, you can always go back and browse this and all of our webinars from our website. So what is Wonderware InduSoft Web Studio, and who is InduSoft, now Schneider Electric Software? As many of you may know, InduSoft was founded in 1997, and for the vast majority of the time between then and now, we were a standalone software company that was really focused on developing an open HMI SCADA platform. Towards right around the end of 2013, we were acquired by Invensys, who is the parent company of Wonderware. I'm sure if you're involved in industrial automation, that's a name that you know well. And then very shortly after that, in 2014, Invensys was acquired by Schneider Electric Software. So now we actually fall within a division of Schneider called Schneider Electric Software, LLC. But we still maintain the same group of engineers. We still develop the product and execute on kind of the roadmap that we've always had in mind. And with the added benefits of the additional resources provided by Schneider Electric and the ability to leverage some of the skill sets and some of the other software product lines throughout Schneider Electric Software. So first, just a couple of quick comments about the history of InduSoft. We were the first HMI package for the embedded operating system world, which back in 1997 was Windows CE 1.0. I think, why do you care? What's important about that is that was a very limited operating system. And certainly the hardware that you would typically find it on is not what you would call robust. So from the beginning, from the inception of the product, we've always taken great care to basically be as efficient as we can in our code base, think about memory usage, object size, things of that nature. And it always forces us to keep our focus on being, very efficient when we write our code, and you'll see that's what allows us to run in both the embedded operating systems that you're familiar with, and I'll also briefly mention our new foray into kind of the IoT world. We were also the first HMI SCADA package to offer a true web solution, and what we mean by that was you could have your InduSoft application running on a PC, a runtime PC somewhere, and the remote user through a web browser, Internet Explorer, could connect to the application over a network. It could be in the office upstairs or in a hotel halfway across the world, and with the appropriate security credentials, log in, have the ability to interact with the application, navigate, and so it gives you a lot of flexibility and freedom in disseminating information throughout your organization. We have a patent for database connectivity, and really the reason that's in there is if you haven't used our database connectivity, it's somewhat unique in the industry. We've developed a way of exchanging data really with any third-party SQL database. Where if you're kind of a SQL, inexperienced with SQL, it doesn't really require any coding, but if you're a SQL guru, then we give you the ability and the flexibility to, query databases, manipulate data, things of that nature, and that ability is present throughout our product line, even down to Windows CE, and some of the steps that we've taken to enable that are the reasons behind that patent. We were the first HMI company to support OPC UA, so in addition to the hundreds of drivers that you install with our product, we're an active member of the OPC Foundation, and we're the first company out there with the new unified architecture OPC client, and also, to my knowledge, the first HMI provider that had support for multi-touch throughout their products. So as we move from kind of last century to this century, now everyone's carrying smartphones and tablets, and they become familiar with how you interface, pinch and zoom and swipe and things of these nature. Actions of that type weren't typically found in, traditional HMI SCADA packages, but we've managed to incorporate that now in our product, as well as migrate from our traditional Internet Explorer-based thin client to our HTML5 thin client, which certainly opens up a whole new world because now remote users, can access applications from, Apple iPhones, Android tablets, really any device that supports, an HTML5 browser. So these are just kind of a list of some of the features that we've been on the forefront of, and most recently with the release of version 8.0, we've begun the process of decoupling the runtime dependence on Windows. There's certainly a huge installed base of Windows PCs out there, but you've probably heard about the industrial Internet of Things and the need to get more and more granular in terms of data acquisition to really understand, how efficient your process is. And the runtime platform for that's not always going to be, an industrial computer. So with the introduction of our IoT View product, we have now have support for Linux and VxWorks and anticipate additional embedded operating systems beyond that. So just several examples where InduSoft has and continues to remain on the forefront of developing features. So as I mentioned, this slide really speaks to the vision for InduSoft Web Studio at the inception of the product, and even today. When we started back in the 90s, many of the HMI products, didn't mean to get carried away there. Many of the HMI products in the market really were companion products to either PLCs or perhaps a proprietary HMI line. And InduSoft took kind of a radically different approach and decided that we would try to offer a single product that our users could use to communicate with as wide a variety of industrial automation hardware and software packages as possible, and then once that application was developed, to be deployed on a wide range of PC hardware, from devices running on embedded operating systems all the way up to full-blown PCs and servers. And then finally, the third piece to that is, I alluded to earlier, is kind of the web-based remote access. So whether that's thin client access from an HMI within your manufacturing facility, or a cell phone or a tablet, completely outside your network, with the appropriate IT provisions and the security credentials from our built-in security system, it allows remote users to connect over a network and visualize applications really from anywhere. This slide is just an example, and I was up here for a couple reasons. It kind of gives you a taste of how InduSoft has been deployed in the past. Obviously, some of these PDA-looking devices in the bottom right-hand corner have kind of become obsolete, but those were running obviously sometimes Windows Mobile, Windows CE. You had your traditional HMI product lines, touch panel PCs, all the way up to desktop PCs and full-blown servers. Maybe even running in a redundant capacity where you're monitoring one or multiple processes. So it's a very scalable product that can go from the smallest of applications to the largest, all utilizing the same skill set, the same skill sets, the same tools. And obviously, if you go to the marketing tab on our website and do our case study, many of the companies' names in here, you can get a little better feel for the variety of applications where they've used InduSoft in the past. So let's talk a little bit about the product. Even though the product originally started as kind of a HMI for embedded operating systems, InduSoft has really evolved over the years into a full-featured development environment capable of supporting even distributed SCADA applications. So in that, we're talking, you have a complete library of tasks and modules that you would expect, data logging, trending, alarming, recipe management, things of that nature. As I mentioned, we installed over 200 native communication drivers along with the product. So for the vast majority of PLCs that you may need to interact with, or equipment that you may need to acquire data from, we give you a way of communicating natively with those devices without requiring the need for any third-party communication software. But we do also support OPC, and the reason for that is we don't have every protocol, but we do, if we don't have a protocol, we give you a full library of different OPC DA, UA, OPC.NET. So it really is opens the world to getting data into the product from just about anything. We support a complete graphical development environment that allows you to create both your own shapes, libraries, and objects, but also the ability to import graphics specific to your products or processes. So if you have some CAD drawings or 3D renderings of your equipment, you're able to bring those into the graphical development environment and then use our complete full suite of animations to create powerful reusable symbols and objects that then you can add to your symbol library that may be unique to your process. So a lot of flexibility there. InduSoft is both a .NET and an ActiveX container. Once I pass the presentation over to Cameron, you'll see how he uses that capability. But again, that's just another way that we try to keep the product open. So whether it's a video player explaining how to do something in alarm condition, or possibly it's a video feed from an IP camera, again, these are all things that you can drop into screens to make your application as flexible as possible. Remote management tools. InduSoft has a great way of connecting to remote applications. So if you need to update the program, update the license, start and stop tasks remotely, use the remote troubleshooting tools, Database Spy and Logwin. It's a great way to be able to understand how your applications are behaving without physically having to be there on the spot. And the reason I bring all those up is because everything I've mentioned, everything that you would see if you download our software and use the evaluation license, PC demo, our sample application, it's all included in our basic license. So, you may, all you really have to do is figure out the size of the license you need, and we have licenses as small as 150 tags all the way up to north of 1 million. But when you make that investment, you know that, if you're not using databases now, if you want to do so in the future, you're not going to be hit with an additional license and an additional module. So really the idea behind the product is to create this open platform and kind of wrap the core tags database in these layers of abstraction. And what do we mean by that? Well, it basically means that if you develop an application, obviously, and machine monitoring is a great example of this, not everybody is going to have the same machines. Your customer base may require you to interface with different types of machines, or maybe they're going to require you to save data to whatever database they use on their network. So as much as possible, we try to separate all of these, ways of connecting to the outside world from the core of the product, such that if you have to make changes, whether it's to a PLC or to a database, you can make simple changes in the application, and 80–90% of your application is intact and doesn't require any rework. This kind of speaks to the integrated development environment that we have. If you develop an application in InduSoft Web Studio on a desktop PC, then you have the ability to deploy that on a full desktop server, PC, Windows embedded, Windows CE with no real rework or engineering. It's just porting the application from one platform to the other. And as I mentioned, now we have our fourth runtime environment, which is IoT. Today that consists of Linux and VxWorks, but there will be additional operating systems supported in the future. We talked already about the connectivity, but briefly on the plant floor integration piece here. You can see a list of many of the common PLC vendors, but one of the unique things about InduSoft is when you create a tag in InduSoft in our database, it's not hard-coded linked to only one device or I/O address. You have the ability to link InduSoft to, an InduSoft tag to multiple drivers and OPC clients. And what that enables you to do is get a lot of flexibility. For instance, you could use InduSoft almost as a protocol gateway, where you may be reading device from one PLC and then sending it to another device through an OPC client worksheet or possibly another driver. And it also allows you to create applications where you create all the functionality of the application with, kind of multiple communication worksheets in the background. And then at installation, your field application guys, your field techs can configure the runtime application such that they say, oh, in this case, I want to communicate with Allen Bradley PLCs or possibly Schneider Electric PLCs, Beckhoff, Omron, the list goes on and on. You can make those, you can develop your application and make it so flexible that at the development level, it's already accounted for, and those changes can be made very easily in the field. We've already talked about the mobile access, but certainly the ability to access from a wide variety of devices through the internet. And we also provide, the ability to have redundant systems with failover. So if a primary system goes down, all of the thing clients will, remotely, switch over to a secondary backup SCADA server, and then you have the database technology behind that, such that if you have a database connection go down, you also have the ability to, configure your application to store data to a primary and a secondary database in a store and forward mode. So it's a very comprehensive, open platform that allows you to work with multiple databases and at the same time ensure your data integrity. We already talked about that, so I'll skip through that. We've talked about the WebSyn clients. And then finally, the last point I'd like to make is really since the inception and even today, first and foremost, we want our customers to feel that they're making a sensible investment. And whether you developed your application in 1997 on a Cassiopeia device shown on the left side of the screen running Windows CE 1.0, even today, you could take that same application, put it to InduSoft Web Studio version 8.0 running on Windows 10, requiring no rework of the application. There are a lot of other packages on the market, typically from OEMs, and it seems like every 4 or 5 years they come out with a new, better way of doing things, but they don't always get you an avenue to migrate your applications forward. So that's certainly, something, a commitment that we make to our customers. We want you to feel confident that it's the best product for you today, but it'll also be useful for you 5 and 10 years down the road. We already talked about that. And then lastly, before I turn this over to Cam, I wanted to show a couple of resources that we have on our website that you may not come across. They're kind of, hidden behind a couple of links, but the first is, let me see here, there's my web browser, there we go. If we go to the, let me see here, what is this, support video library webinars. From this tab, you can scroll down and about 2/3 of the way down, you'll see a webinar that we did recently on and-on solutions, large format displays in InduSoft Web Studio. When Cameron talks about his product, it's really more focused at the machine level, sending data back to a server, generating reports, things of that nature. But oftentimes, you may also want to take another step, and then, if you have a large manufacturing facility, implement kind of an and-on solution with large format displays so that information can be visible from afar. So that's the first resource I wanted to show you. And then obviously, again, from the home page, if you go to our store and click the free add-ons, if you're not familiar with this, there's just a whole bunch. We try to add one every week of new symbols and libraries that customers ask us, hey, how could you do this, right? And so, periodically we'll grab all of these and we'll put them in a new product, release, but then it may be another 1.5 years before we do all that. So it's always useful to kind of check in and see the types of symbols that we've had here. You see, I can just keep scrolling down and down. There's all sorts of dashboarding symbols, things that you can take. You're certainly free to modify these as well. And I probably have already gone past it. Let me see here. The one in particular that I wanted to mention again here is an Andon set. So if Andon production monitoring is of interest, we've got a great set of symbols here. You can click on that, download these, add them to your symbol library, but there's also a great 15-minute video on how to use that tool, how to build these displays inside of InduSoft. So, certainly take a look at that if you think that would be of interest. So that's really all I had for my part of the presentation. Now, if I can get back to my control panel here, I will pass the presentation over to Cam. Let me first.
Okay, so like I said, Cameron Sly with SLYTRACKR. This is the SLYTRACKR system that we've developed for machine performance monitoring, specifically developed for CNC machines, but it also covers a wide range of machinery. Those of you familiar with machine shops, you got saws, punch presses, injection molding machines, down the list. And our system's really flexible and able to adapt to virtually any type of machine tool, whether it's a CNC, manual machine, even inspection processes can be monitored. I'll come back to this slide in a minute. We're going to go down here, give you some background for those of you who aren't familiar. Like I just said, the SLYTRACKR was created to be an affordable data collection, reporting, control, and communication system that could easily be adapted to any type of industrial machinery. CNC stands for computer numerical control. The CNC machine is essentially any type of equipment that has mechanisms controlled by a computer control system. The large majority of the machines used today do not have the ability to output data from machine monitoring. Most of the new machines come with this built in, and there's a couple of standard protocols that they all come with, but as you'll see in this next slide, roughly 80% of our customers' equipment don't have the ability to communicate with these other systems that are on the market. So that's where we came up with the idea to create this system that's flexible and could be integrated into any type of process or machine. Let's go back to the system overview real quick, the architecture. So basically, here's a system architecture of the SLYTRACKR. It's comprised of a main server, one per facility, dependent on the amount of machines and so on. But as you can see on the right side of the screen, a touchscreen interface is mounted on each machine near the operator control or near the area. That interface collects data from a custom-built PLC, essentially, that's mounted in the electrical cabinet of the machine. It collects the data through that and then sends that over Wi-Fi to the server. It can be configured to be a wired connection also, but right now everything we're running is over Wi-Fi. The server collects all this data, sticks it into databases, generates reports, sends out custom emails. There's thin clients that are connected to it so that there could be different dashboards for different positions in the company. For example, we'll get to this in a little bit, but if the downtime reason arises because of a broken tool or something like that, that could pop up on the appropriate personnel's computer. And so that it makes it flexible for everybody that has their own, oops, what am I doing here? Get back to that. Okay, let's go back to where we were going. Background overview. So like I said, the server, there's one per facility. The server is running the main big runtime license. It collects and sends all the data to the touchscreen interfaces. Custom operator messages can be sent and received from the interfaces from the server or any of the thin clients. The server, like I said, is what collects all the data, generates these automatic reports, and send those out via email on the user set schedule. Provides historical reporting, like I said. You can go back, view data, however you would like to view it. Here's the touchscreen interface and then the interface module that you see plugged into the cord there. First of all, the touchscreen interface is a custom, semi-custom PC running on Windows 10 on a touchscreen PC. And then the interface module is a PLC, essentially a PLC that we built based on the Mega 2560. And any of you familiar with that is from the Arduino. So it's a real open source controller that we were able to build, which gives us the flexibility to adapt that to any type of machinery or control, and gives us a lot of flexibility there. Like I said, can can be interfaced to virtually any type of equipment. It doesn't have to be CNC. The tablet, going back to what I was talking about earlier, the tablet receives the data from the interface module and then sends that over the network, Wi-Fi or wired, to the main server, and vice versa. The server sends data to the touchscreen interface as well. Let's go back. Here on the right side of the screen, you'll see a touchscreen interface mounted on an Integrex. It's a Mazak mill turn machine. It's essentially a dual turret lathe with milling capabilities. The control, for those of you who aren't familiar, the control in the bottom corner, the huge control, is the machine control. That's what controls the machine itself, and then the SLYTRACKR module is obviously the white one with the speedometers on it and so on. On the left, we'll play this video, just kind of showing the interface recording as this machine's running. This is just a Doosan lathe. This particular customer's manufacturing fire hose components. Okay, that's it for the PowerPoint. Now we're going to go into InduSoft and show you the applications. First, I'm going to show you the application that runs on the touchscreen interfaces, which are, again, mounted at each machine, or they can also be used for inspection or anything like that. They can be custom built to any process. Let's see here. We're going to get an error here because we don't have our PLC hooked up to the computer right now for the demo, but so here's the main dashboard that we've developed. Get rid of this for now. Upper and right upper hand corner, you can see some basic information. Utilization today is based on how many hours out of the day the machine's been in cycle. Simple as that. You got your elapsed cycle time, elapsed stop time, and then all of these down here are downtime reasons. So for this demonstration, I have a button in here so that you can see the machine going into cycle. So when the machine goes into cycle, it starts counting towards in cycle, obviously. When the machine's out of cycle, it goes into uncategorized until you select a reason why the machine's not running. These are all custom to whatever. This is just one shop's preference. Get to that in a second. 7 different downtime categorizations. Another feature that we have integrated in is the cycle start interlock, which you see popping up there. What we found after running this for a couple of months is the operators tend to not use the downtime reasons. So on the reports, we were getting either in cycle or not in cycle, and no reason why it wasn't in cycle. So what we've done, we've made this cycle start interlock, so to show that machine's in cycle, machine goes out of cycle until the preset time, stop time, which is for 10 seconds right now. After 10 seconds, this message pops up, and the cycle start button on the machine is interlocked. They can no longer run the machine until they input the reason why the machine has just been down for X amount of seconds or minutes or hours or whatever. And that was really a good way to force good data into the reports because, like I said before, we were getting one or the other, not all the downtime reasons. Moving on, got to log in, hang on. Here's another display we've developed for a customer, tack time, for those of you familiar with that. Just a form of process measurement. Straightforward for those of you familiar with that. You got your target parts, your actual part count, your efficiency based off of all those. Scrap part reporting, you could have all your categories in here for why you had a scrap part, reason for downtime, obviously, bad material, whatever. Takes it out of the actual, pretty straightforward for the tack time for those of you familiar. Like Bruce was going back to what Bruce was talking about, the .NET object. This looks a little distorted because I'm on my development PC, but what we had developed was a .NET PDF viewer object, so we could integrate a PDF viewer into our application without the need of getting out of our application and going to just your standard Adobe whatever PDF viewer. So the idea behind this is operators can see setup sheets. The setup people can see setup sheets, whoever it may be. You could see videos for part inspections. You can show pictures. I mean, anything of that nature. Another .NET object that we've integrated in is a DNC. Again, kind of distorted. A DNC object. And DNC, for those of you who are not familiar, is how a shop would get their programs in G-code into the machine tool and out of the machine tool for that matter. So what we've done is integrate that into the tablet, which allows it to be networked versus the standard way of wiring all the machines into a big RS-232 switch box or some other form of wireless communication. It just adds, it combines all of this into one neat package, and it works great because for those of you that know, there's always problems with the communication because all the machines have different baud rates and stop bits and parity and so on and so forth. So the idea behind this is there's a tablet at each machine that's permanently wired into that machine's RS-232 port. The communication settings are set once in the settings in SLYTRACKR, and then you can send files, receive files, and it's always going to be specifically for that machine. You can say send file. You could go to your network, have all your NC files networked. You could save the file to the network, and so on and so forth. That's really about it for the tablet side of this demonstration. We'll get out of that. Go to the server. So this is just a basic screen that we've come up with for this demonstration of the main server. Obviously, there's only 4 machines on this one. DuraB up here in the left-hand corner is actually live right now running at our customer shop, just showing cycle times, daily OEE percentage, which isn't a true OEE at this point. That's just utilization. So this would be running on the server up in the offices or wherever you may have that. And then this server is what sends out the 10 clients to other computers in the facility or outside of the facility, like Bruce said, you can connect through a secure connection from virtually anywhere in the world. Here's an example of one of the reports. Obviously, the customer's logo would be there. These are all bar graphs showing the amount of time, the percentage of the day that the machine's been in cycle, or any one of the downtime reasons. Down here we have pie charts for obviously today, the last 7-day average for all the categories, and the last 30-day average. At the bottom of the report, we have simple line graph for the last 30 days of utilization. Right now, we have this set up at this particular customer to send out per machine. Each machine sends out one report. Obviously, the server does, but it sends out one report for each machine. And then it sends it out by department. This facility has an injection molding department, a stamping department, and a machining department. So we combine all the data into one report for molding, stamping, machining, and then we have one huge report that is for the entire plant. Really breaks it all down nicely and gives some insight into your process there. Let's get out of that. Bruce, am I missing anything?
Sorry, I think I was muted. Possibly. Well, there's probably a couple of things worth talking about. Some of the things that as a sales guy, it's always interesting for me to hear. When people first come across InduSoft, and I can't remember over a year ago what the exact reason for your initial introduction of the product was, but having these back and forth conversations with Tam, you'd be like, well, how would I do this? I was like, oh, well, in this case, you could use, a .NET container, or, if you're looking for ways to communicate with that, proprietary PLC, if that's built on top of Arduino, maybe our TXRX driver would fit the task. And then, Cam would disappear for a couple of weeks, and he'd come back, and he'd be like, yep, I got it built into the product. So it's just another kind of endorsement. I don't think he knew what he was buying when he got his first development license, but, it's great to see a product continue to scale and meet his needs, and also let, kind of a guy with a little bit of ingenuity can figure out. But if it wasn't clear when that first, error message came up when Cam fired up his project. Obviously, he is actually using our TXRX driver to communicate with with his hardware for now, and certainly that is just one of many of the drivers. I know, kind of in our morning session, somebody asked, well, how could could I take this type of a platform and integrate part counts from my own PLC? And the answer to that is theoretically, yes. I mean, obviously, you would have to work with, CAM, or if you're developing your own system, whatever the case may be. But that's the great thing about InduSoft, right? If you've got an Allen Bradley PLC or a Schneider PLC or a Beckhoff PLC or an Oman PLC, all of that data is available to you because, whether it's serial Ethernet, we have a solution for you. It just gives you a way of aggregating data from a wide variety of sources that you may have on your plant. And I'm sure, Cam, you can talk to that. A lot of your the customer base, the customers that you work with, they've got some pretty, I guess what I would call legacy equipment, stuff that's not just sitting there with a Modbus, TCP port ready to shovel data out. So, finding a product like this was great for him because it allowed him to, solve some of those hurdles.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we could go back to kind of the bigger picture of the whole story, like I explained in the earlier session. This whole thing started, we wanted to start recording these machines, and it started out by a box that we built with essentially just an SD card slot on it. It was mounted to the back of each machine, and it logged these part times and so on and so forth to this SD card. You had to walk around, take the SD cards out, and put them into your computer, and then you were free to do what you want with them. And that's obviously seems extremely archaic to me right now after coming up with this new process. But from there, we went to having one server, and we came up with our own wireless network, if you want to say, of just a radio frequency that communicated to the machine. So we had a custom-built PLC in the back of the machine that sent its information to the server through our own wireless network radio frequency. And then we still had a tablet at the machine, but we were originally using thin clients. And what we realized with thin clients is they work great, but we found we had a lot more opportunity to have an actual runtime license at each machine versus a thin client. So we switched over to that, where we have a server, like I said, and then each touchscreen interface of the machine is actually running its own runtime license. And that's how we're able to communicate with the module. So obviously we changed the communication protocol from our own wireless frequency to going through the TCP IP server inside of InduSoft over the network, whether it's Wi-Fi or wired. So that was a huge step in the whole process for us, and really gave us an advantage, and allowed us. It's going to allow for a lot more growth in the future.
And it was one of the reasons, I'm trying to recall some of our conversation, I mean, that due to some of these, manufacturing facilities that, as a pure thin client, and sometimes when you were forced to use wireless, there was just too much interference and noise. And so to do some of the local stuff that, you couldn't sit there and wait for a connection to be reestablished. The great thing about InduSoft is, I think Cam mentioned there in the earlier morning webinar that he's about at 149 tags. So at least for now, he's at the lowest possible end of a licensing licensing model. So it's very, fairly cost-effective, license, and the ability to have the reliability of the local runtime, not dependent on a wireless connection back to the server, gave them a lot more stability, and made it, allowed him to provide stuff to the assurances to his customers that he probably couldn't do just on a wireless thin client.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So again, the basic data flow is, TXRX into the node, and then from each node, he's got 6 machines, and on the server, he'd have, probably 6 TCP/IP client worksheets on the server aggregating that data, and that's kind of the basic communications of what he's doing now. I know you've dabbled in and out of databases, and we were talking about that just a couple days ago in terms of probably going back into using a database on that server as well. Can you guys talk about the pros and cons of that?
Yeah, absolutely. We started out using Microsoft Access, and it worked great, and then we kind of got sidetracked on this new architecture and got away from it a little bit and just started using basically some text files temporarily. But now that we got this new architecture down, we're getting back into the access, which obviously they have an InduSoft driver for, and it makes it real nice and easy to store data, retrieve data using SQL. And so like I said, we're getting back into that so that you can have your historical data. And the InduSoft driver makes it real nice to get that in and out of access.
Great. So we've got a couple questions here. Again, if your curiosity has been piqued and you have any other questions, I encourage you to get those in. We'll start now. We have one question here. Someone says that they are interested in that PDF viewer. Could you elaborate how you integrated it into InduSoft?
Yeah, so we had it developed as a .NET object, and then inside of InduSoft, you were able to integrate .NET objects into your application. I know there are some restrictions as far as which .NET protocol, or I don't know if you say protocol, but version you're using. For
right,
what is it? What do you guys? You're up to 4 point something or 6 something, aren't you now?
Yeah, there are various .NET libraries. I think 4.5, but I'd have to double check on that to speak with certainty.
But so basically, yeah, we developed that .NET object outside of InduSoft, of course, and then you're able to bring that in using just the InduSoft Web Studio. So,
in addition, obviously, to the other, the other .NET that you have for the G code or
yeah, exactly. Your .NET object is just essentially a RS-232 terminal so that you can send and receive G code or NC files from the machine tools.
That kind of dovetails nicely with the next question, which is, can you speak about, a little bit about that PC? And I'm guessing what they probably, would mean about the OS. And this kind of goes to the, I'll take part of that because I know you can talk. I think it's running full Windows 10, correct?
Yeah, correct. It's a 10.1 inch Windows 10 PC, essentially a tablet that we have done some modifications to allow for it to be more of a full-time HMI interface, if you want to say. And then the server computer, we had go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you finish, please.
As somebody asked something, they asked about the server earlier. The server is a custom-built computer that we have put together to better run this application. The server is actually running Windows 7. So our server is running Windows 7. The nodes, if you want to say, are running Windows 10.
Yet again, another advantage of InduSoft, since it will run on any operating system currently supported by Microsoft. You'll probably find it more and more difficult to buy servers with Windows 7 moving forward, or PCs with Windows 7. But
exactly.
32-bit, 64-bit, any operating system supported by Microsoft. You can develop your application and deploy that, and not have to worry about compatibility issues. One additional other comment, because somebody had mentioned something about the OS specifically, and this is on the InduSoft side of things. People ask, well, why didn't you use something like Windows 10 embedded or what are the Windows embedded operating systems? That's really more of a constraint on the InduSoft side, that when you use our embedded images, the support for third-party .NET controls is not there. So once Cam had these third-party .NET controls that he wanted to embed into his application, that made it, kind of a decision easy for him that he would go with the full, the full Windows 10 OS.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a question here. Will your solution effectively work with firewalls? And I guess that's kind of a difficult question to answer because that goes to the constant battle between IT and manufacturing. But maybe you can talk about some of the hurdles you've had there.
Yeah, Bruce and I just actually had this conversation earlier between kind of the battle between IT and the engineering side of things. But short answer is yes, it will still work with, in theory, all of the firewalls. It may take some modifications to open ports and port forwarding and so on and so forth. So far, all of our installations have been a breeze as far as that is concerned. We've had to open a few ports here and there, but there's nothing in from what I can see, there's nothing in the firewall that should keep this from working, especially if you're inside of your network. Where you run into a little bit more issues is when you're trying to get into the network from outside, depending on how the IT is set up with the firewalls and so on and so forth. You agree with that, Bruce? I mean, it's...
Yeah, I mean, it's a never-ending, you know, that if you were to talk to our, you know, our tech support people, or you might talk to them, that's probably about a third of the you know, technical support calls we get. You know, probably deal with thin client access and, you know, not being able to see, you know, or not being able to connect to a runtime application, and it's almost always, you know, related to IT constraints and getting ports correct, and, you know, understanding the difference between the web server and the you know, the TCP/IP server that serves out the tag data. So there's definitely, you know, some work that you need to do to make sure that all works together, but there's nothing inherent about firewalls or the InduSoft solution that prohibits that. You just need to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, yep. The questions aren't popping in here on my screen. I don't know if you have more on yours.
No, I think that's about it for now. You know, we'll you know, hang on here for a couple more minutes. So if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask either myself or Cameron, please you know, type those into the Q&A box now. And if we don't get any others, you know, I'd like to, you know, first off, you know, thank Cameron for his time, and, you know, his to be honest, we kind of came up to him pretty late notice due to some scheduling issues that we had, and so you know, I really appreciate, Cameron, you taking the time to do these and, you know, put your presentation together. And also, I'd like to thank everybody that took time out of their day, you know, to join, you know, join our webinar. Whether this is the first one you've been to or you attend many of these, obviously InduSoft is what it is because of our customer base. You know, we don't spend an awful lot of money on marketing, so, you know, you know, we've grown as a company because of our customers through word of mouth. So we certainly appreciate, you know, you taking time out of your day to learn more about the product, and, you know, certainly anything else, questions that you have, if you don't get them in to the Q&A now, you can certainly email us, you know, to info@indusoft.com. We'd be glad to get back to you with an answer. Joe, doesn't look like we have any other questions. Cam, thanks again for your time, and to everyone else, appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to, you know, presenting our next webinar for you in a couple weeks.